What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, the asshole of abstraction here, and we are back with episode 81, I believe, of the video game therapy series. Yeah, let's get started. I wouldn't say I pride myself, because pride's probably the wrong word, but I take great caution in what I consume and what I hear through the rumblings of, now some of the rumblings I hear in terms of what's going on in society, I can't help, but I try to limit it as much as possible, because I think it is too easy to be too gluttonous nowadays when it comes to consuming news and media, and what even is news or what's newsworthy anymore is kind of all a big clusterfuck joke. So I try to do as little as possible, but I did see that the Sam Bankman-Fried guy, the FTX scoundrel, did get a sentencing of 25 years. And I don't really care about that as much. I mean, I'm sure I could probably talk about the specifics of the case, but I don't really give a shit about that. I was thinking more about the entire criminal justice system, as well as maybe the distinction between white collar and blue collar crimes, because I think they're, it's core of the justice system is supposed to be like, absurdly egalitarian or ambivalent to, the people themselves and more about the crime. So we all know that, with enough money, you can win any case, like I've said before. But anyway, I thought of an interesting way to punish, again, I'm sure there's holes in this, but an interesting way to punish people who specifically do financial crimes, like this FTX guy did. So I'm not sure what the exact figure is. You could just, you could pick whatever number you want. It doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of just applying this to all other future financial crimes. So this goes for, the Bernie Madoff types as well as this guy. So let's say it's like $8 billion or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what the figure is, but let's say it's $8 billion. They still have a minimum sentencing, so the minimum sentencing here 25 years, but instead of it being like they sentence him to jail and he just has to sit there, I think what it should be instead is that they should make him work a minimum wage job to pay off all the money that he stole or embezzled or whatever that he did. So if he owes, he stole $8 billion from people, he will work the minimum wage job until he pays off the $8 billion. You might be thinking, well, okay, that's like, I don't know, 20,000 years or something like that it would take for him to pay that off. But what he's allowed to do, I suppose, is first of all, he has to serve the minimum sentence. So he's not allowed to just have somebody pay off the $8 billion for him and then he gets to go walk free. He still has to work the 25 years at McDonald's or really just any kind of pretty much wage slave job, pretty much. But he's allowed to, I guess, kind of source donations that will be put towards his fund of $8 billion. Now that money is like non-tax deductible, like burnt money. So if he gets his rich parents or whoever, or, Tom Brady and Steph Curry want to chip in, $1 billion each or something like that, it still wouldn't, that money's just straight up burned. Like they just lose that money and he'd basically have to just enter that back into the economy, or maybe he'd give it back to the people, the victims or whatever. I'm not really sure. But I just thought it'd be funny. And then look, if he's not able to raise the $8 billion, by the time his minimum sentence is over, he's got to keep working. So he could really be in there for a life sentence, depending on, and it really, the reason that there's, other people can help bail him out is that if they were so inclined to support his cause, they could give money, showing that this guy could be, I'm sure if they implemented this system for, I don't know, Raul Solbrecht wasn't really, he's more of he wasn't really a financial crimes person, but I don't know, someone else that was kind of not doing the wrong thing, I'm sure he wouldn't have a problem crowdsourcing $2 million or something like that to get him out of prison, as opposed to him working his way to make $2 million. But someone like him who, is $8 billion, you're never going to pay that off working at McDonald's, at least not before you die. So it's pretty much a life sentence for him, regardless of whatever the minimum sentence is. And, suppose he does have enough connections in high places that he is able to find, not only $8 billion, but $8 billion worth of money that's willing to be burned, because it's not like that money just literally goes to the U.S. government or something, or again maybe just the victims, the people that lost all the money. And if they don't, it's a life sentence. Sorry, buddy, it's your fault. So I don't know. I just thought it was a fairer-ish way of punishing people, I guess specifically who do the white collar crimes like that. But I don't know, because it does get really like, people are arguing about, oh, he's nonviolent, or like, oh, he showed no remorse, or, I don't even know. They have all these weird theories about, the motivations and whatnot. And I don't know. It's these people, I obviously have a very low opinion of them. I honestly have a very low opinion of anyone that works in the finance industry. I think it's, that along with advertising is kind of the epitome of moral bankruptcy, but that's kind of an opinion for another time. But I don't know. I just thought it would be a more interesting way to punish some of these people that do that, because I don't know. You kind of have to be a certain extent of soulless to begin with to even start a career in the finance industry, or much less even be able to maintain one. I guess even less than that is, I guess, be a successful one, in the sense that you are able to steal a bunch of people's money and do a bunch of bullshit with it. So I don't know. I just thought it was funny if we institute a different mechanism of punishing those criminals. But anyway, I will, let's move on to something else. But I don't know. I think we should make him work at McDonald's. I think that'd be funny. For 25 years, or mop up floors or whatever, or the rest of his life, actually, if he can't make the money. So Chesterton's fence. I'm pretty sure Chesterton is the right person, or at least the right word they use to describe it. It is if you're familiar with it, great, congrats. If you're not, basically Chesterton's fence is it's the idea that before tearing down an old institution of any kind, understanding why it's there. And I think the parable or whatever is about, these people that they are running or messing around, and they find a fence, and they're like, why is this fence here? And, the one guy's like, well, I see no purpose for this fence. Let's tear it down. And the other person's like, well, we should understand why the fence was here to begin with. We don't know. It could be because there's, predators or something in the air. There could be a problem. There could be a good reason why this fence is up. We can't just assume, just because it's not apparent to us why this fence is here, we should just tear it down. Like, it seems stupid. But the idea is basically that we should, be certain of the function and the impact of, things at the institutional level before, like, destroying them. And there's a few very obvious examples, I think, in today's society. And some people just want to upend everything, which, again, I'm not saying there's not a whole lot I would want to change about society and the world, but there's certainly an element of Chesterton's fence that is involved and should be involved in all of these discussions. So like, one would be like the destruction of religion. People just kind of say, well, this doesn't seem to make any sense. We should just tear this down. And like, now no one's religious anymore. But then, of course, there was all kinds of social, interpersonal, even just like intrinsic value that religion gave people. And yes, it wasn't, scientific, so to speak, like they weren't able to, chemically prove the existence of God. And therefore, like, I guess it lends to this hyper rationality, but I think we're already kind of seeing what this death of religion does to people, at a social, personal, and individual level. There's a lot of meaning that is lost with religion. So we kind of we ignored, the rule of Chesterton's fence when it comes to something like that. So I think, especially when I speak about, I don't know, I think it's a good rule of thumb to employ when talking about the dissolution of existing institutions. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't tear anything down because it, served a function in the past. I'm just saying the replacing institution, so whatever replaces religion as a, societal institutional idea, needs to fill, like, or at least needs to address all the same things that religion was addressing. That's just one example. I'm sure there are a lot more I could think of if I was in better headspace, but I don't know. We were seeing just a lot of turmoil and fallout from that, because I think I don't know. I feel like I don't need to defend that much, but anyway, I guess the other part about this has nothing to do with religion, really. This is just a more, I guess, I don't know, wider perspective take on things. We were very, I think when not that there was some master designer or some mastermind behind the entirety of the modernized world, but there was certainly a lot of, there's a certain frame of mind that went into thinking about, what to create in automation and machines and scientific progress. I think for the longest time, like I've said, humans battled subsistence, and now we're kind of on the verge of battling gluttony. And we battled subsistence on the guise of survival. It was very difficult for us, the prehistoric humans, to survive, at least difficult relative to today's terms. I'm sure by them it was just normal. It was just, his life was getting up and hunting or fasting for a few weeks if you couldn't find food or whatever. But we battled subsistence for a long time, and then we were very, very concerned with the physical, material needs of humans. As we developed society, so we were like all of the existing, or much of the existing, these lasting institutions, many that don't, I guess religion being an example, lasting institutions existed to fill the physical needs of the humans. So this is like eating, sleeping, reproducing, kind of your biological instincts and natives that we need to perform in order to survive. And perhaps one that we've kind of abandoned, maybe even just recently, as opposed to, as a whole, is this, is the deeper psychological, I guess, needs or demands of humankind, or humans, or just individual humans, or whatever. And I think some of us might have an inkling to know that, I guess, the materialistic solutions, meaning like medicine and all the mental health problems, they aren't necessarily just it's not just like I don't know, I hate to sound like a pseudoscientist in saying this, but like, saying that millions and millions of people, or even billions at this point, who have like, depression is just a natural chemical imbalance. I'm not saying that there isn't a chemical imbalance, doesn't exist, okay? But I think I'm arguing against the fact that this is a natural state of a enormous portion of humanity. I think we're so far abstracted from, I guess, naturalist tendencies of humans that it's hard to call anything natural anymore. And I, in some senses, reject this very chemical, material, scientific perspective on like the human psyche, I guess, as it were. It's difficult, especially once you get out of the hard physics and the hard scientists and the hard science and the hard mathematics of it all, to I guess, to even talk about any of these topics, because then we just get people debating over like their individual circumstances, or even someone who has a pharmacology degree or something like that, or someone who's knows medicine is just talking about the chemical imbalances. But I don't know. I think there's certainly a lot that all we really have is theories in terms of science on why people are going nuts. And obviously I blame technology for a number of this, at least some technologies, not all technology as a whole, but our rampant adoption, use of technology, and kind of our ignorance of Chesterton's fence when it comes to tearing down existing institutions. So I guess another example beyond just, I guess, or related to at least the religious aspect, is the human connection. I think we suck ass at we're getting like way worse at human connections than we were before. And human connection, not only between humans, so like human or intrahuman, even with ourselves. I think people in general are far less in touch with themselves, to the point where, like, who are you is seen as like a silly question, or at least a question that only demands material answers. Like, who are you? My name's Dave. I'm 40. I'm a real estate agent. Like, or whatever it is. I don't give a shit. Like, that seems to be our very conception of who you are. But I think there is, like, nobody, and it's kind of circles back to my, like, death of introspection, or the lack of rumination that haunts me in modern society. But people have a horrible time, or really just never really taught, or there's no emphasis or effort put towards connecting with yourself. Because I think that you might think that, like, I don't know, just being yourself, yourself. But I think a lot of people, surprisingly, don't know themselves, or at least haven't really explored themselves. And I don't mean this fucking weird sexual shit. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like not what your kinks are, what your favorite color is. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean like the kind of the deeper psychological desires and drawings of such. Because if people were so in touch with themselves, I think we would see a lot less of this. I guess hysteria is one way to put it. Of the mental health crises that we see. So I think one explanation, not a abruptly scientific and perfect one, is that people are completely out of touch with themselves. They have no fucking clue who they are. They just put up a fake veneer, like my name's Dave, I'm a real estate agent, and that's who they live. They just are Dave, and they're like the whole time deep down they're ignoring the psyche that's saying like, yo, do you even know who Dave is? Yeah, I know you're a real estate agent, but like, is that what anything at like, who are you? We just kind of push away and ignore those questions because they're silly, right? Or they're not scientific, or they're, wishy-washy, or you can just make it up. I want to be a real estate agent. So you're just a real estate agent, or we're just, I don't know. We're very materialistic when it comes to that. And I don't mean materialistic in the sense it's like we just want to buy shit about us, but a lot of times we're defined by our possessions and our, I suppose materialistic might be the right word there, but our materialistic trappings and the stuff we have, what we do, what our name is, what car we drive, whatever. But I would argue that is a laughably, if not non-existent portion of who we actually are. And I don't think even who we are has stringent, like, technical terms, right? I even think, like, I wrote a blog post about this, but like, I'm a strict anarcho-capitalist with egalitarian intent. It's like you could just, like, we're just making up these words to try and describe ourselves in some strange buckets, but I think there's indescribable aspects to who we are and what we might value that we're entirely ignoring. And so I think beginning with ourselves, meaning that because we individually have such horrible connections with ourselves, we don't know ourselves that well, we then also have a horrible connection with other humans and are only getting worse at connecting with people, right? I even think, like I talked about this before, that everything now just seems awkward, right? Every social interaction is just awkward. Everyone's just almost waiting, just awkward, as if it's like a movie scene or some bullshit. Or, I don't even know what people think social interaction is supposed to be, but by default now it's just, this is awkward, we can't even, order food at the deli without it being awkward with this guy, or like not knowing what to say or something, when, it used to be kind of a fundamental, cornerstone of existence was, the human connection. And I think what really personifies my insistence on this being important and I guess undervalued is that we now have, like, I don't know, the term active listening, or like listening, or the fact that, like, you need to, like, actively listen instead of hearing. So the fact that we have a separate word now, this actually really pisses me off. We have a separate word now for listening, because it's assumed that if you're just hearing what someone says, you're just automatically not listening. You have to be actively listening. Isn't that what you're supposed to be doing anyway? Like, versus just like hearing stuff, right? I think we hear all kinds of shit, but we are never listening, right? We might hear what someone has to say, but we're not fucking listening, right? We hear opinions, we hear music all the time, but are we listening to the music, or are we just hearing it, right? And I think there's a difference between hearing and remembering, right? Because I can hear and remember an opinion someone had, some brain dead take from some stupid pod. I can hear and remember some kind of meme. I don't even know. But I think there's a huge difference between hearing and fucking listening. And even the fact that we now have a different, like, our own vernacular for, like, listening now just points to the fact that we don't fucking listen to ourselves. We don't listen to other people. We just hear stuff, right? Maybe we'll remember it and regurgitate it, but that's not listening. I feel like, I'm not saying it used to be better in some sense, or there's some, it was better back in my day. But I think that is a potentially existential threat. It's the fact that we don't listen. We just hear, or we hear and remember, or we hear and we don't remember. Maybe we just don't we're just bad at all of it. But the fact that it seems to be a separate skill now. It's like, oh, I'm a skilled listener. It's like, isn't everybody supposed to be able to listen? Isn't that like the fundamental? I don't know, because I think instead of listening as it's, I don't know, according to its philosophical roots, I think now more than ever, all we do is just hear and remember. Like if I hear what you say and I remember it, you assume that I, listen and understood what you're saying. But I would argue that there's a big difference between just regurgitating what somebody has said before versus like listening. I think it's really, you're not critically engaging with something if you're just hearing it, right? So I think we kind of lack the critical engagement with things that we hear versus actually listening. So I don't know, I hear this, I think it's all the time. I think people who, I don't know, like listen to, always have something in their ears, like they're just always listening to podcasts or something. People who can't be alone with their own thoughts, really, which describes a harrowing, large percentage of people who just can't sit alone with their own thoughts, are just completely, have never even exposed themselves to the idea of listening at all, right? All they can do, and they can hear and remember, right? They can hear, Joe Rogan's guest or something talk about something stupid, and they remember it and they just say it. But have they listened? Have they thought? Have they had any kind of critical engagement with that material? Probably not, because again, they're not flexing that muscle, so to speak, which I think is very problematic. Is why I don't know. I understand that the word active listening needs to exist now because people don't listen, period. But the fact that it is so accurately depictive of people's behaviors is concerning. And I don't know. I just think there's many people that are quick to say, well, I listen, are simply people who can hear and remember. But I think there's a huge difference between hearing and remembering and fucking listening. So I don't know. That's just kind of I don't really have a thesis behind that other than that we suck at it. And I think that is really the basis at why human connections suck. And not even between humans, with ourselves. I think we might hear and like repeat what we are like to ourselves, what we say, but we don't listen to ourselves, which I think requires, again, almost a different, not even way of thinking, a different goggles entirely versus just hearing and repeating. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of ground being lost on human connection, and that it kind of ties back to listening versus hearing and remembering. So I don't know. I just think it's kind of a threat, and I'm not absolving myself from this at all either. I put myself equally guilty on the front of just being able to remember stuff and not really having any opinions for my own, or really listening to myself or others. So I'm not absolving myself at all, but I just think it's one thing to at least recognize that as problematic of society at large. So I don't know. That's kind of my opinion on that. So yeah. Let's see. I guess this is not really related, but I think humans, I guess, in addition to human connection of some kind, including like one's connections with oneself, which I also include in human connection, inter and intra human connection. I think that it is an innate, I'll say need, but I'll use the word need pretty loosely here. It is innate interest of humans to have meaningful and fulfilling work that they do. And I think it is sad, that work now is basically synonymous with wanting to kill yourself. I realize that's kind of harsh. It probably is, but I don't necessarily think I'm totally wrong on that either. Because talk to anybody about work, chances are they are complaining about it. But I do think that work, people say, well, what would you do if you won the lottery? Oh, I just wouldn't work anymore. I'd retire and do whatever. I think, as many have seen, and they only really understand it once they're there, but that would never really, that wouldn't solve their problems, right? But I think the fact that work is now basically is so synonymous with just hating it and just getting past it and just being, laborious, I think we're kind of missing the real value in work. Because I think even I would like to think that I would do what I do right now, regardless if I had a bunch of money or not, or because I'm not, I have nothing. um, I would like to think I'm doing exactly what I'm doing now, but and not because it has any economic value, but because it is, I guess, fulfilling work to me. I talked about this in my blog, at least with regard to the different definitions of work, but it seems like the most widespread and colloquial use of work is like whatever the fuck you do to make money, which oftentimes is something that you don't want to do. You just have to do it because it makes you money. But we've lost the conception of work that is like, like even like raising kids is like considered work, but is like the meaningful and fulfilling work. But I even think beyond just like, I don't know, I guess parental stuff of raising your kids, there should be more to work than just the stuff you hate and or maybe raising your kids. Like if that's like, still work to you. I don't know. I think we're kind of we could be losing a lot by just missing this idea of work just as whatever sucks. So I don't know. I think that also kind of includes the whole human connection part with yourself, right? What do you want? What would you do as work if you don't? Given that you have to, the work of some kind is central to your being in existence. You have to do some kind of work, because you literally I have someone who's tried doing literally nothing, and I don't mean nothing in the sense of just like aimlessly watching YouTube videos. I mean sitting in dead silence, staring at the ceiling level of nothing. You can do it for a few hours. You can probably do it for a few days, maybe even a week or so. But doing literally nothing is eventually becomes an arduous task, where you eventually want to do something, whether it be writing, sculpting, clay making, and it doesn't have to be anything useful in any sense of the means. Useful, economically useful, that is. But many works of art end up becoming useful, even in an economic sense, even long after these people are dead. So I don't know. I think it's also worth kind of our time spent introspecting on what kind of work we tend to do or would like to do or find valuable in our lives. Also something we're ignoring by our lack of introspection. I don't know. But perhaps that's one of my other existential threats to humanity is the disassociation of oneself from one's own inner psyche. I don't know, the complete disillusion of some kind of inner versus outer being, because we're very much outer these days. Everything is all external to you. All the things that you own, the stuff you say, it's all external. There's very little emphasis put on internal things. And I guess religion in its old function used to I guess patch up some of those holes. Of course leaving some, but would patch up some of those holes of the internalness. But now with the dissolution of that, we just have people who are solely materialistic. And I think that is even more dangerous than a bunch of gay-hating Republicans or whatever the religious folk are. So I don't know. Not that I want to take sides here on religion, but whatever. Anyway, I will move on to something else as well. Let's see. Okay, here's a fitting one, at least for me. I'm a bit cynical. You could probably say with, I wouldn't disagree with you if you said that I leaned cynical on many of my things. And meaning that I think that eventually, maybe it's not in my lifetime. I doubt it. Actually, I doubt it's in my lifetime. I think we're a bit more adaptable to that. But I think eventually we will be the downfall. Or there are many collapses of human society, humans specifically, that will to come. Meaning that maybe we figure things out in a couple 100,000 years after we bomb ourselves back to the Stone Age or something. But I do think that many more collapses of society are imminent. Perhaps it ends and humans kind of reaching whatever our goals are, or whatever, go to Mars or whatever the fuck. But I still think there's a lot more bad to come. And again, maybe not in my lifetime. Maybe it's too early. Maybe whatever. But I don't think that we see this like perpetual up and to the right graph always. And part of my, I guess, thesis for doing that is that I look at the smartest people the smartest people I know personally, not just people that I see on YouTube or whatever the fuck, and, some people that I know personally, the smartest ones I know. They now, well, I can't speak for the past because I've only existed now. They are going into the dumbest fields possible. So the smartest people I know are going into the dumbest fields. Dumbest, I mean, not in the sense that like it doesn't require intelligence. In fact, it's the opposite. But it does nothing to promote human flourishing, even at a very basic level. So they're kind of these empty industries. I'm not saying the smartest person I know is in advertising, but it's pretty much the equivalent of the smartest people I know go into fields that are actively against the interests of humanity. And I don't fault them either. It's not necessarily it's not like one person either. I'm talking about the collective whole of smart people that I know. The smartest ones tend or are pushed or whomever go towards what I would consider to be the dumbest fields in terms of, I guess, humanity progressing or humanity moving on to the next stage of its development or whatever. Yeah, some of them are doing novel scientific research or something, but generally in fields again that something like how to sell somebody, how to convince somebody to buy Bitcoin or whatever. But the finance industry is a perfect example because I'm not sure there's any argument you could possibly make that it drives humanity forward in any way possible. I don't know that. I suppose perhaps if there's an algorithm that is, conjured up that, accidentally describes some other natural phenomenon that's helpful, then it's good. But the purpose of the finance industry is completely nothing to do with human flourishing whatsoever. And the fact that so many intelligent people are spending all their brain power on, what I would consider to be very, very stupid ideas is part of my reasoning for why I am cynical, or at least I'm not super optimistic. That doesn't mean to say that there's no smart people I know that are going into, noble fields, or at least not using their, intelligence for evil or whatever, or for vice. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's just that they're outnumbered. And if you have a majority of people that are incentivized to go into morally bankrupt fields for their own well-being, a la money, then you're going to get a crumbling society. And that's unfortunately what I think we have. I guess piling onto that, I think the death of humanities is almost poetic in some sense, because even the word humanities, death of humanities as a field is dying, meaning that there's no one goes into it anymore. It's kind of a waste of time. You're not going to make any money, and not that you'll make any money in any field, I guess. I've already been critical of higher education, but you're especially not going to make any money in humanities. It's kind of poetic in a sense, right? The death of humanities will be the death of humanity. Meaning that it's, if we continually remove the importance of history and even of fields like philosophy and ones that are much, softer and not STEM and not money making and not lucrative for careers, that's a death of humanity. So I just think it's really prophetic that the death of humanities, I guess, as an academic field, I think that is emblematic of humanity's imminent collapse at some point. And again, I don't necessarily think it'll be in my lifetime. I'm not saying it's going to collapse next year and to buy low or whatever. I'm just thinking that it will. Our trajectory is pointed in the wrong direction. And I think really, in order for that to turn around in any sense, there has to be major conflict or a collapse or an explosion of some kind. Not a literal explosion. I suppose it could be a literal explosion, but I just mean some kind of disruption to the status quo. Most likely, probably just like a big war. That's kind of a standard way we've done this for several iterations of, democracy, then tyranny, democracy, then tyranny, whatever. So I don't know. I think at some point we'll have a few more booms and busts, and I'm sure we'll never really get it perfect in any sense. But I don't know. I think it is possible that during my lifetime, so perhaps I guess depending on how long you think that is. I think there will be major conflict of some kind, or at least one more big boom bust cycle thing that we will get to see. And maybe it speeds up. Maybe it, happened over 50 or 200 year periods before. Maybe it'll happen every 10 years. I'm not really sure what the timelines are. I'm not. It's not really my inkling to extract weird predictions on stuff like this. I don't really care. I've already made my predictions clear in my other video, but I didn't really put a timestamp on any of those, and that was on purpose because I don't think it's who knows really. The strangest things can prolong society. And arguably I would think that our kind of lack of individuality and our not even the sense that people need to be individuals, but our lack of connection with oneself, I think is kind of extending the shittiness of everything. I think if people were more introspective and spent more time exploring themselves, they'd realize how at odds everything contemporary is against them in the sense that it is not serving their best interests, even if it seems to be and claims to be. It's truly not. And I think if there was a lot more of that, we'd see a lot more, neo-Luddites or whatever, something of similar disposition, but we don't. And I think the drug of technology, of swiping and all that shit it merely prolongs a lot of this, the problems that we're seeing throughout. And I don't know, it's funny that people are trying to use the technology to, I saw I got somebody pitched it to me, a dating app, or not a dating app, an app designed to lower their phone usage. A phone app designed to lower their phone usage. I mean, am I the only one that thinks that is just patently hilarious and just absurd? I mean, I imagine, and my first thought was that just when you opened the app, it says, put your fucking phone down. I mean, that would be the only, I guess that would be my, minimum viable product, I suppose, is that. But I just thought it was just absurd that was, someone that, they've worked on it for like 2 years. It's like a legitimate idea of theirs is to a phone app to help people stop using their phone, which I don't know is again, I don't know, symptomatic of the whole problem with a lot more than just apps. But anyway, I guess for more, speaking of apps, I suppose I might as well just cross this one off my list. This is a more shitposty topic. It's not really I don't know, not really one that's a deeper abstract topic. Fitness bands. I used to have one of those Whoop bands, and I was actually a proponent of it for a while. I actually think I liked it. I liked the fact that it tracked your sleep and that you could see how well recovered you are, or something like that. But the subscription ran out because I wasn't the one paying for it. But when the subscription ran out, I didn't re-up it. So it's kind of a waste of money. But I've kind of 180'd on that whole thing. At one point, I used to think it was really useful and people like it. And there's like this whole Apple Watch craze about data about yourself. Not only the private, because there's obviously like blatant privacy, not even risks, just holes, just entire holes with, like, do I really want someone to potentially know what my heart rate is at all times? That's like, and yeah, it is meaningless for them, but like on an aggregate scale, that seems tyrannical. And just like a horrible idea in so many different ways. And I feel like if I need to justify that to anybody, you don't get it. But I guess besides that, I even think from a personal, use case, I don't know that it's even that valuable. Like how much sleep I got last night, or how recovered I am, or something like that. I suppose there was one time that like it kind of told me I was sick before I was sick, but then I just got sick. It's not like I could, reverse it or like, do something. I mean, I still got sick. I don't know what the, I don't know what the, oh great, it like told me I was sick before, like, oh, that's cool. Besides it being gimmicky, it didn't really make me not sick. It's just told me that I was sick, which is fine, I guess. But even besides that, I felt it was, and maybe this is just, I think it happens subliminally, but I'm, kind of aware that this has this influence. But, you wake up and give you the stupid recovery score. Oh, the recovery score is 14%. It's like, what the fuck? I thought I slept great last night. And then you like wake up and you're like, well, my recovery's kind of low. I guess I kind of do feel like shit. You know, you kind of justify yourself however you feel that day. And it's even worse when you're like in the green, you have like a 90% recovery. And you're like, dude, I feel horrible. Like, this is the worst I've felt in like a month. But this thing is telling me I should feel great. And it just kind of fucks with you. It's not even that like I give a shit what this thing says, but it just fucks with you for no reason. And I don't like that. That's just, I mean, truly, what are you going to do with this information? Like, I mean, I got 4 hours of REM sleep last night. What are you going to do with that? Like, would it have made a difference if it said you got 1 hour or 2 hours? Or like, I suppose if you're going to inflict lifestyle changes and you need some stupid excuse to, but I'm not somebody who needs a, you know, excuse from an app that's harvesting my data to tell me to make a lifestyle change. If I want to, you know, go to bed earlier, I don't need an app to tell me I'm not getting enough sleep. I know if I'm not getting enough sleep because I'm exhausted. I don't see how this is that much better than just our biological impulses that I guess we're just so keen to ignore them that we need some stupid app to tell us, it just goes back to the whole connection, like, you know, are you connected with yourself kind of thing? Because if we're so horribly connected with ourselves, we need some stupid app to tell us if we got enough sleep last night. We're fucking hopeless. Really? You can't even, like, what do you mean if you got, like, you can't tell if you got, like, or how do you feel? Feel like shit every day? Okay, well, there's a bigger problem at hand, you know? I don't know. I just think it's very emblematic of a lot of different modern problems. I guess specifically about the ones I've already talked about in this video. But I don't know. I've 180'd on fitness bands in the sense that I am now anti-fitness band. I think they're I don't know. I think their use cases it's just not worth it, right? It's not even worth, like, you could make a financial argument, even if the finances aren't part of it, even if it was free and government sponsored. There's like the data risk, privacy part of it. Like, do you really want someone so if you were jerking off at 3 a.m? I mean, but that's really what all that, you know, what you use the heart rate data for, right? Or it's like, oh, I'm sick before I knew I was sick before I was sick. It's like, well, you're still going to get sick, you idiot. It's not like the band is going to, like, you know, inject some, you know, vitamin C or something into your bloodstream. Like, no, it's just going to tell you you're sick, but I know I'm sick. And when it regards like making you feel like shit, it's either you're going to wake up feeling good because you got enough sleep, and it's going to tell you didn't sleep enough and that you're in red recovery, and you're like, man, you're going to get all domed up thinking you didn't sleep that well. Or you're going to wake up feeling like shit and it's going to have a green recovery. And you're like, damn, what the hell's wrong with me? I feel like shit. I'm supposed to feel great today. So, like, there's not really a fucking win on there. There's just, I don't see the fucking point anymore. And again, this was someone that's coming from somebody that at one point I like love my Whoop thing. I wore it on my ankle. It made me look like a fucking prison convict or whatever, but I thought it was great. I loved it. I loved the data it gave me, whatever. But now I've 180'd and I'm on the opposite side of it. I think it's completely useless. Not only a waste of time, but it's a waste of your mental, like, don't put any mental effort towards that. I don't know. I think your focus is better put elsewhere. I mean, better yet, I think, instead of spending 10 minutes scrolling through your stupid app in the morning, spend 10 minutes alone with your thoughts. That will be infinitely more productive, or make you feel better than any fucking stupid app thing can tell you. Because again, I wager that a lot of people can't even do that, which I think is dystopian. People can't spend 10 minutes alone with their own thoughts. They don't even know what they think. All I can do is remember something that Joe Rogan said, and they just fucking spit that out. They haven't had an original thought ever. And I don't know. I'm not saying that. I guess it's kind of the NPC argument, which I'll kind of pivot to here. Like, people call other people NPCs. Oh, you're an NPC, and yes, of course, you know, relative to you, you're the main character, so everyone else is always an NPC. But I think the reason that this is so much, it's more prevalent now than it might have been, is because we're not really, I'm not gonna say you're not giving me any reason to believe you're not an NPC, but, like, to what effort do you go to produce original thoughts? What effort? Well, you watch, you know, the same YouTube algorithm shit that people like you're watching, hearing, listening, and doing all the same things that everyone else is doing, even with your infinitely complex DNA and experiences and vocabulary, you'll get an augmented version of something. But to what extent do you truly go to produce original thoughts and original ideas? I'm just gonna put an open question out there. And ironically, what I would consider to be one of the best sources of that is, you know, like, passive rumination, silence, dead silence with your own thoughts, taking a simple idea and thinking about it, seeing where you go, kind of observing your track through your own mind, whatever that might look like to you, is ironically a better way of generating any kind of unique or interesting or non-NPC-esque thoughts than just watching some other fucking brain dead NPR podcast that gives you the same fucking popcorn statistics that you got last time. So I don't know. I think there's validity to this, like, your fucking NPC argument, at least in a not in a exact sense, but in a broad sense, in the sense that people are very, very likely to have, like, you know, oh, are you mad about this? Yes, I agree. Yes. Here, I'm going to rattle off the same fucking 4 statistics that I heard on the Joe Rogan podcast. Ooh, yeah, I heard them on a NPR podcast. And it's the same fucking, what the fuck? I mean, there's no one has any original thoughts anymore. I guess it also kind of is related to the, like, this, like these religiously science people who, like, always need some stupid peer review. Do you know how fucking unscientific? Have you read any of these studies? Go read some of these scientific studies that, again, have only been done once, right? And I mean, we just had that whole fucking debacle with those clowns at Harvard making up fucking data. That is, like, the commonplace way. Like, you know, if you don't think that perverted incentives have made their way into academia, you're delusional. So even your little beautiful popcorn science could be a whole big pile of fucking bullshit. So I'm not saying the fact that you need to have these, like, peer-reviewed, double-blind tested theories behind everything you fucking say is stupid. A lot of times it requires, again, your own thoughts, thinking, using your brain to come up with a solution that may or may not be right, but it's still your own fucking idea. And look, if there's one thing you could say, I'm not saying that anything I've said in any of these videos is important, relevant, interesting, or even right, or just even not totally wrong. But at the very least, it is a function of me giving honest efforts towards generating my own thoughts of some kind. If I came on here and just spat off the same fucking bullshit 5 talking points as some Andrew Tate moron or some other idiot out there, then I'm part of the problem. But I can at least say, and with a straight face, that I make a concerted effort to have original thoughts by not consuming the same brand of bullshit, spending a lot of time exploring the depths of my inner psyche, and no, I don't have, like, an enormous following or some or credentials, or at least I mean, I do have credentials, but I don't leverage my credentials in these videos because I don't think it does anything. And if it did, then fuck you. If you think that would mean that my views would have more. If I told you that I was 5-time PhD in a particle fizzing, you know, physicist expert or some bullshit, would that really give that much more weight to my opinions on, I don't know, the fucking wealth inequality? Like, that have nothing to do with that, you know? It's just me thinking about shit. It doesn't fucking matter what my stupid credentials are. So I don't know. I think it's very, I think there is some, like, you know, as much as I don't like to side with the type of person that, you know, calls people NPCs, there is kind of a point to some of that. And it is, I guess, partially representative of my frustrations with society at large, is their dependence on, I mean, I don't mean to ostracize rationality, because I would like to argue I lean on rationality quite a bit in all my musings, but I don't know, maybe just introspection, or just the lack of what we've lost a lot of when it comes to depending on technology for everything. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe you're a freaking NPC. So whatever. I'm gonna move on to something else. I guess this is I don't know. This is kind of just a short bit. So I'm a big fan of torrenting. I think torrenting is a very, very interesting paradigm for file sharing or whatever. And I think it'd be an interesting way of, because one of the problems I view with, I guess, the way the infrastructure of the internet is set up now is that there's so much computing. I think when the internet was originally designed, we assumed that the end clients, so like people's individual PCs or whatnot, would always be super, super weak, and the power would be elsewhere on the network. But I think now you would be blown away at how fucking powerful, like, again, like I say, we sent people to the moon on like 2 kilobytes of RAM or something like that. Now People are running around with 64 gigabytes of RAM and shit in their computers. But I think a lot of that processing power at the client end, like the end user, is being completely wasted. I mean, I'm not saying like playing video games wasted. I just mean like it's idle most of the time. And I think torrenting would allow us to decentralize files for one, leverage a lot more. So if you get files out of like the huge cloud providers' hands, which I think is good for people's privacy, it would make more better usage of the absurd amount of processing we have at the end. Like I would love to just do even just a broad strokes napkin math on the amount of processing that just is cold at night, just sitting in people's rooms, doing nothing. Like our laptops have 16 gigabytes of RAM, tons of storage, like all this stuff. And we just didn't use it at all. Not saying we have to have all our computers plugged in all the time doing something, but if we want to, I guess, be like, stop making more computers and we're not using the ones we have. So I don't know. I think more people were torrenting, or at least we switched to like, instead of serving web pages always via like a single server, if you instead, had website files that you'd visited, like cached or stored, on your device and served, via P2P, a la torrenting, we could make a lot more use of all the infrastructure that we have at the ends. I just think it's kind of a huge waste that we have so much computing power at the very ends of our network, and most of it just does fucking jack all. It would also give a lifetime to some stuff that just doesn't need to exist. Like some shit just doesn't need to exist forever. And if no one goes to websites and nobody kind of sees the file, it just dies, which I think is fine. I think stuff dying and stuff kind of moving on, if people want it to, people will keep it if it's valuable. Otherwise they won't. And that goes for everything. So I don't know. I think it'd be a good way too of kind of measuring, not really measuring how much stuff should stay around, but it kind of helps, recycle or get some of the old stuff out and I don't know. More importantly, just make better use of all the processing we have at the nodes of the network, the end nodes. But because I think it's just kind of a huge waste. But I don't know. Maybe I have more to say on that later. But I'm at my time, so I'm gonna cut it off here. But anyway, thanks for watching, and peace out.